the fundamental question, what tax bracket are you in now? What tax bracket will you be in later? Are you in your peak earning years and in a high tax bracket? Or are you maybe for the time being not earning as much? But really the bottom line is it's easy to figure out whether or not you are currently in the current tax year, a high or a low tax bracket. What's not so easy to figure out is what tax bracket you're going to be in later on. Hello, folks. Welcome to the Happiness and Retirement Program podcast. I'm your host and creator of the Happiness and Retirement Program podcast, Bill Del Seti, certified financial planner, entrepreneur, registered life planner, and lover of life most of the time. We have a really popular topic that is going to be discussed on this podcast today. And we only have limited time. I think 20 minutes or so is how long we like to keep these podcasts. But before we get into the podcast, I am going to just read off a quick disclosure. And that disclosure goes like this. Del Seti Capital Management, LLC, is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Del Seti and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website, www.delseti.com, with a hyphen between the L and the S. Okay, let's get into it. I want to talk today about a subject that is popular with Americans young and old, and that is the subject of Roth 401k. Now, I said specifically Roth 401k and not Roth IRA for a reason, and the reason is Roth IRAs are subject to income limitations, meaning your income has to be below a certain limit in order to contribute to a Roth IRA. However, that's not the case for a Roth 401k. So we're not talking about Roth conversions. That's something you can do when you are not working to convert tax deferred money to potentially tax-free money. Not talking about that. We're talking primarily about Roth 401k today. However, most of the concepts that we're going to be talking about also do apply to Roth IRA and Roth conversions. Okay, as you can tell, the subject is rather complicated. So I'm going to try and keep the essence of it simple. So what is a Roth 401k? First and foremost, a Roth 401k is simply a tool that may be available to you at work that allows you to make contributions to a retirement plan in which those contributions grow tax deferred and come out tax free, including the growth later on. So in other words, a Roth 401k is after tax money going in the form of a salary deferral. Okay, so you're deferring salary into a Roth, but you're deferring after tax money. So it's showing up on your pay stub as a part of your taxable gross wages. Okay, you're paying tax on it, and whatever's left over is what you contribute. Now, whatever that grows to comes out of the Roth 401k down the road when you retire, tax-free. Potentially, most of the time, tax-free. I'm not going to say always, but 99% of the time. Okay, so that's quite a benefit. That tax-free nature of the Roth 401k is really nice because you know that down the road you're not going to pay any income tax on the earnings or the amount that you put in after tax. However, you do have to pay tax on the money you put in before you put it in. So it shows up on your paycheck that way. The alternative is the old traditional 401k, and a traditional 401k that's been around quite a bit longer than the Roth, its cousin or its sister or brother, however you want to say it. Traditional 401k is pre-tax money going in. So you get that tax benefit up front. In other words, when you put $1 in a traditional 401k, you make a contribution from your salary, it's only costing you 75 cents if you are in the 25% tax bracket. Make sense? So to put $1 away pre-tax, it's only costing you 75 cents post-tax. Alternatively, with a Roth 401k, to put $1 away, it's going to cost you $1.25. Why is that? Because it's after tax money. If you're in the 25% bracket, you want to put $1 away, it's going to cost you $1.25. Actually, the math works out to be a little different, but I'm close because you pay tax on the tax. Okay. But about $1.25 for every dollar that you put in there. Okay. So when you put money in a Roth 401k, you're going to feel it, especially if you are in a high tax bracket. You're going to feel it because that money isn't in your pocket and it's in fact being taxed. Tax deferred money, on the other hand, you feel it, but in the opposite direction. In other words, you're getting that tax benefit on the money and you're getting it now, not later. Roth 401k, tax benefit comes down the road when you pull the money out, tax free. Traditional 401k, you get the tax benefit now. So then the question is, who benefits most from a tax benefit now? People in a high tax bracket. And who gets the least benefit from a tax benefit now? People in a low tax bracket. Well, that's only part of the story, because just as important is what tax bracket you will be in when you take the money out, right? So if you think about it, that makes sense. If you are saving 25 cents on the dollar now, putting money away in your working years in a traditional 401k, but then in 20 or 30 years, when you retire, what if you pay 40 cents on the dollar when you take it out? Not a very good deal, right? You would have been better off with a Roth 401k in that case. And alternatively, if you are in a lower tax bracket now and expect to be in a higher tax bracket later, then Roth 401k makes sense. So maybe you're getting the part of the issue here. Maybe you're starting to see a pattern of something we're talking about, and that's tax rates. Caribou coffee, delicious, always available at the office. Come see us, have a cup, among other caffeinated beverages. So lattes, espresso, etc. We like our coffee and our caffeine here at Del City Capital. That's the fundamental question. And fundamental question is, what tax bracket are you in now? What tax bracket will you be in later? Are you in your peak earning years and in a high tax bracket? Or are you maybe for the time being not earning as much? Maybe one spouse is not working for the time being. So maybe you're in a low tax bracket. Well, then maybe you should consider Roth 401k. So that part of the equation is relatively easy to figure out, right? That's only half the equation, but it's pretty easy for us to do a projection and get an idea of what tax bracket you're going to be in. And rule of thumb, again, I hate rule of thumb planning. So see your financial advisor or tax person about this. But really, the bottom line is it's easy to figure out whether or not you are currently in the current tax year, a high or a low tax bracket. What's not so easy to figure out is what tax bracket you're going to be in later on. Why is that? Well, the tax system, the federal income tax system, the highest marginal bracket and the tax rates have changed over the years to from very, very high marginal brackets to very low brackets. We happen to be in a relatively low, believe it or not, income tax environment now compared to the past. So in the past, tax rates actually have been higher, and there have been some periods where they've been lower. So when you are putting away tax deferred money in a traditional 401k, essentially you're making a bet that down the road, you are going to be in a lower tax bracket than you are now. Okay. So let's look at some numbers. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, I am going to explain what I'm talking about here. But what's on my screen? So the first thing that I want to share with you is the history of marginal income tax rates. Now, when I say marginal, what does that mean? Let's talk about that for a quick minute here. The US tax system is progressive, and built into the tax system are higher income tax rates for higher income earning people and lower tax rates for lower income earning people. And that's what makes it progressive. Okay. So if people are struggling, certainly they should be paying less in tax or no tax relative to those that are earning a very good living who might be paying more. Now, it's a bracketed progressive system, meaning that as your income goes up, the next dollar that you earn may be taxed at a higher, what we call a marginal rate. And the marginal rate is what you pay in the next dollar of earnings. Okay. So some of your money may be taxed at a very low rate, but then the next tranche of money is taxed at a higher rate and the next tranche at a higher rate. It also depends on whether or not you're married or what your tax filing status is. But in any event, what we're looking at on the screen here is one of my favorite charts of all time. And it actually shows the top US marginal tax rate going all the way back to when the tax system started. Yes, folks, believe it or not, there was a period of time where nobody paid income taxes. But around 1913, there was an income tax that was, of course, on all US citizens. And you can see that it started with the highest marginal rate of 7%. Talk about low. We'll never see that again. But then the tax rates jumped in the late around 1915, 1916, 1920. And a lot of that had to do with World War One. Tax rates went down again in the late 20s, in the go-go years, the roaring 20s. The federal top rate was 25%. But then look what happened in the 1930s. 79% marginal rate, top rate. 91% marginal rate. Now, again, not everyone paid that, okay? Just people in the highest brackets. Then we had the highest brackets of around 70% in the 70s. And then rates since around 1988 have been historically low, the highest marginal rates at 40%, 35%, 40%. And currently the highest marginal rate is 37%. So what can we say about this, if anything at all? Well, certainly tax rates have been a lot higher in the past. We have a massive federal budget deficit, and someday that's going to have to be paid. So there's a very strong argument to be made that tax rates will be higher at some point in the future. When, we don't know. That's the $64 million question. So if that's how you feel, then perhaps you should consider Roth 401k and not traditional 401k. Okay. Because if you think you're going to pay a lot more in taxes on your retirement money later, why not put it in tax-free money, pay some tax now at what you think is a lower rate to get it out tax-free later when you think rates will be higher. Now, another issue. So as you're going to see, there's a lot of flies in the ointment, so to speak. The tax system is bracketed. And for high income earners now, and I'm going to share my screen again, and let's look at current marginal tax rates. And so that's what we're looking at on the screen. And I'm going to go actually to married filing jointly. This is the bracketed system that we're talking about. So as you can see, on up to 23,000 in taxable income, 23,200, you only pay 10%. From 23,000 to 94,000, 12%, on and on and on until your income, married filing joint. Once it gets up to 731,000, any income earned beyond that is taxed at 37%. That's what I mean by bracketed. So if you have a husband and wife, let's say, that are in their peak earning years, and they are in, let's say, the 32% bracket, the 35% bracket, or the 37% bracket. Well, the 32% bracket starts at taxable income of around $384,000. So you have to have quite a bit of earnings to make that jump from 24% to 32%. The question is, when you retire, will you be spending at these same levels of your income in your peak earning years? And I have yet to see this. So, in all of my years as a financial planner, the folks that earn $400,000 a year don't spend $400,000 a year when they're in retirement. Okay. So, while brackets may go up, your earnings may go down. So, you may be, all else being equal, assuming the tax rates stay the same. When you retire, you may be in the 32% bracket now, peak earning years, 400,000, let's say, in taxable income. But then when you retire, you might have only 200,000 in taxable income in the form of withdrawals from taxable IRAs or Social Security, or maybe some pension income. So you may be saving 32 cents on the dollar with a tax deferred IRA and taking the money out at 24%. Okay. Pretty good deal. Now, okay, you can make the case certainly that tax rates are going to change and they may be higher across the board, but it goes against public policy. Keep this in mind, to tax people with lower incomes at a high rate. Not saying they won't do it. It's usually the people in the higher brackets with the higher incomes that pay the higher rate. So, what is my point in all of this gobbledygook? My point is that if you are in the 32%, the 35%, or 37% marginal tax bracket to put money in a Roth 401k, you're going to pay 32% on the money, and then the net is what is going to go in the Roth. If you're in this 32% bracket, you put money in a tax deferred IRA, you're getting the tax benefit of not paying 32% because it's tax deferred money, tax deductible money. And so you do get a tax benefit now. So remember, Roth 401k tax benefit later, pay tax on the earnings now before you put it in. Tax deferred 401k, different story. Tax deductible, and it's pre-tax money going in. Trade off, you're going to pay tax down the road. But if you're going to be in a lower bracket, look, if you're earning $400,000 a year now, chances are you're saving a lot of that in one way, shape, or form. And when you retire, you're probably not going to live on $400,000 a year, even if you could. Now, again, rule of thumb. Okay, I'm not, you may be the exception to the rule. But as an advisor, my opinion is that if you're in the 32% bracket or the 35 or 37% bracket, man, I would take that tax deduction now all day long. If you're in the 22% bracket or the 12% bracket, or even maybe the 24% bracket, the 24% bracket to me is kind of a toss up. You might want to consider 50-50. Okay, 50% Roth, 50% traditional 401k contributions. Okay, now, what if you are single? Well, the single tax brackets are double, and the income is taxed at higher rates at lower incomes because you're single. So, for instance, the 24% bracket starts at $100,526 and goes up to $121,950. Now, beyond that, $191,951 to $243,725 in taxable income, there's that 32% bracket again. So if you're single and you're earning that kind of income, then you're going to hit that 32% bracket at $191,951. Okay. So at that point, you probably want to get that tax benefit of tax deferred contributions in a traditional 401k, not a Roth, in my opinion. Okay. If you believe tax rates are going to skyrocket in the future, you may be of a different opinion, but that's how I think about it. And if you're in the 24% bracket, maybe you might want to consider half and half. Traditional 401k, get tax benefit on half, and Roth 401k to put after tax money away that's going to be tax free later. And that gives you kind of the best of both worlds too, because you can decide later on when you're retired where to get your money from and to a degree control your tax bracket. Okay. So that gives you an idea of how to consider where you should be directing your 401k contributions, tax deferred or tax free. So remember, traditional 401k is after tax or pre-tax money going in, and you're going to pay tax money later when you take the money out, 59 and a half or older, or in some cases 55. And Roth 401k is the exact opposite. Okay, so there are many other considerations. This is just to give you an idea of how we start the planning process. It's called this bracket planning, okay? This tax year, what tax bracket are you going to be in? And that will help dictate where to put your money. The other fly in the ointment, though, even beyond what tax rates are going to be in the future, is what if you are married now, but you may be single in retirement, maybe divorce, maybe separation, maybe a death, unfortunately. And if that happens, you're going to be in the single bracket. So if that happens, you're all else being equal at the same income level, you're going to pay more in tax. Now, we don't know. We don't plan on getting married and then getting divorced. We don't plan on a spouse passing away. But these are some of the things that can complicate the situation. In a future podcast, we're going to look at Roth conversions. Okay. So, Roth conversion is when you are not working and you're just taking money out of your traditional IRA or 401k at that point and converting it to Roth, paying tax on the money you convert. So it has nothing to do with salary or payroll deduction like a traditional 401k or Roth 401k. So homework, things to consider. Sit down with your tax advisor or your financial planner or do it yourself. Figure out what tax bracket you are going to be in this tax year. And then ask yourself this question. Am I in a high tax bracket, 32%, 34%? Or am I in a low tax bracket? Question number 2, if I'm in a low tax bracket now, and I think I'm going to be in a high tax bracket later, maybe I should do more Roth 401k contribution. If I'm in a high tax bracket now, more traditional. Okay. So rule of thumb, everyone's situation is different. Folks, don't try this at home, but if you do try it at home, make sure you consider all the variables. The devil is in the details. This is just to give you a little primer on it. So high tax bracket now, traditional 401k gets the tax benefit. Low tax bracket now, consider Roth 401k contributions. After tax money, you're paying tax at a lower rate and the amount that goes in for tax free later. And then if you're kind of in between, then maybe do 50-50. It's nice to hedge a little bit. 50% Roth 401k and 50% traditional, something like that. Any questions? Reach out to me, Bill at happinessandretirement.com. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe on Apple or Spotify. And that's it, folks. I'm way over my time allotment. I hope whatever day you're watching this, that you have a great day, great week, great year. And the road to retirement should be fun, whether you're in retirement or you're still in the accumulation years. Enjoy yourself and live into a future that really inspires you to do the things necessary to have a great financial life. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.